Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, it's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Riverdale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, we're technically picking up in the aftermath of the ending of the Riverdale event, but also like this season 5 finale where things have potentially shifted when, Betty and Archie luckily survived the explosion. But the big question is, how? They claim they hid underneath the table, but it's like, even so, that table is completely and utterly demolished. And the way they're acting, I'm like, why aren't they're saying, it seems like they're keeping something secret. But we find out what that is later on, because Betty's like, because her mom forces her to get checked out, and it seems like she's okay. But Betty says, like, Archie protected her, and he's like, but how? Like, what's happening here? Then, like, he checks his weight, and he's like, he went from 165 the previous week to now he's 195, and it's like, wait, what? And I was like, oh, wow, so you put on, like, 30 plus pounds of, like, pure muscle, or as my youngest niece used to say a couple years ago, muscles. So it's just interesting. I'm like, wait, I was like, wait, whoa, are we going down a superpower route? Which, obviously, there are comic books where, like, the Archie comics have apparently, like, spread across every possible known genre. Like, obviously, even what Riverdale's done with the murder mystery element, something the comics have done as well. I mean, because we're also steeping in that territory, which Riverdale already touched on, like, the wild and weird side of Riverdale, which also includes, everything under the Archie umbrella, which includes Sabrina, which touches on a lot of that. I mean, they even had Sabrina herself pop up in the fourth part of it, but it's fascinating to know, like, wow, so you're bleeding that over into, like, the main overarching story is wild to me. Because, yes, there's been wild stuff, but it's like Scooby-Doo. It's like, oh, most things are explainable. But to be fair, Scooby-Doo isn't always like that. There sometimes is some, like, supernatural, magical, or, like, science fictional, like, a lot of times, like, 70% of the time is typically like, oh, it's like, it's not, like, real, it's someone behind it. And then it turns out in the other, like, 30%, it's someone behind it, but there's super, like, natural, magical, or, like I said, science fictional elements involved. So, it's just interesting. I mean, I guess, like, it's not that wild to think that Riverdale would do it, but it's like, right, you wait till season 6 to do that. It's kind of wild to me. I guess they're like, alright, we already braced you with Riverdale. That's supposed to be like a what-if story, but what if we bled some of that what-if over into the main overarching story? And I'm like, are they going to justify that to be like, oh, it's just some abnormalities in your bodies or something like that? Like, are they going to, like, sweep it under the rug explaining it, or what? Because it's not only, like, Archie, as he says, he's getting heavier and denser. He's invulnerable. He's very much like Luke Cage at this point in time. So, he's very Luke Cage. Betty's got, like, almost like an empath aura thing going on, where she can basically read people's aura, and when people kind of have, like, their negative energy, she can kind of see that. And I was about to say, did Jughead get any powers? It's like, no, Jughead seems like he got the raw end of the deal. It's like, yeah, as a byproduct, I lost my hearing. And you're like, do you wonder if there's some correlation in that? Because could it be that while they got better, he's getting worse as a byproduct? Is that supposed to be it? Of like, yeah, they're getting these superpowers and stuff, while Jughead is literally going deaf. And he's like, they ended up finding out one ear is 98%, the other ear is 87%. It's like, that's rough, I don't ever know how to, like, I don't think you can compare and contrast. Like, both situations, I think, sucks, it's like, right, like, either being born deaf or eventually losing your hearing. I think either, it's not like which one's worse. It's just like, they both, it sucks. And I wonder how does that affect him, because it's like, right, while he was typing, he couldn't hear the typewriter anymore, and maybe hearing the click of the keys, it makes it flow a little bit better for him, and to have that kind of stripped away, what kind of effect will that have on him as a writer, in the long run? Which is so interesting, considering, like, there's the other Jughead, who is the one who is writing the stories in Riverdale and stuff like that, keeping the place going and stuff. So it's fascinating that Jughead has all the powers while this Jughead's kind of suffering. And maybe in some way it's the universe balancing things out, but in turn it might actually be an Abigail thing, because we know that she's brought into the fold of all this. Because it's interesting too, because it seems like they're folding in some of the ideas that they had from Riverdale into Riverdale, interestingly enough. But for example, obviously Cheryl's kind of starting to get under an impression like, oh my God, Archie's house bill. Is like, wait, was that curse real? And it's like, right, at one point in time, like magic and all that was real. We kind of accepted it, but as time went on, we just kind of forgot about it. But now she's like, yeah, now it's kind of that belief in magic is coming back, is what Cheryl's kind of explaining to Britta. And it seems like that because we are definitely delving into the magical side of things, but it's like, why is it like Archie, Betty get like these powers? Like, is it to brace them for what's coming? Or did Abigail kind of inadvertently use her magic to make this happen so that she can crush them in the end? Because it's like, right, these powers are going to are going to cause some issues later on in your life. Maybe, I don't know. Or I mean, it could also be that thing of like, right, the other Jughead wrote for them to be okay. So with the coming storm, he wrote something that also encompasses not only them surviving the explosion, which gave them powers, but for them to survive the upcoming storm that is Abigail and everything else that's coming to Riverdale that's potentially coming for their heads. So maybe that's... I don't know. Like, I'm still dumbfounded by the fact is we're getting like... It's like, yeah, the superpowers. What? I was like, oh, they're just going to explain it away. Maybe they will at the end of the season, but for now, it's like, we're going full speed ahead with superpowers. So it's like, is anyone else going to get superpowers? Are you going to keep this a secret? I mean, Archie did go like full throttle and went up against all the ghoulies, which was the worst possible thing. Great, he wanted to get revenge because, like, right, you blew up my house, you try to kill me, you try to kill Betty. And also, they made it clear, because Hiram is paying them, like, it's a monthly account, like, yeah. If Veronica had her way... Which I'm jumping all over the place. I apologize. If Veronica had her way and killed her dad soon enough before Archie had to do that, then it could have been a situation of a potential war between the Ghoulies and the Serpents would be avoidable because the Serpents don't have the manpower to go to war with the Ghoulies. Especially because the Ghoulies are insane. They've always been insane, but even more so lately. So, especially with their leader, Twyla Twist. But it's like, yeah, if you could have cut off that funding, they would have stopped. They would have stopped destroying Riverdale. But granted, that payment would have lasted. That still would have been a month. Because, right, I mean, who knows how long it's been since the last payment. So, like, say, like, this is the end of the payment cycle. So, like, say, like, he already... Well, because it might ought to be automatic. Like, even with him dead, it might still be set to go automatic. So, I was like, even his death might not have even stopped it either way. This would have continued. They would have continued attacking Riverdale. They wouldn't have given up on trying to kill Archie. So, I think it's an inevitability. Yeah, Archie might have, like expedited things, but it was an inevitability. But at the very least, they wanted to be more prepared when the time came. But they don't have time to get reinforcements from FP, so it's definitely interesting, especially because Tony's balancing so much. You know, being a counselor, being a mother, being the queen of the serpents. It's a lot to juggle. Plus, new relationship with her and Fang, which I love. They break that news to Kevin, and it's like, you know, it's like, yay! Glad to know you're together, but he's kind of like, right, he's focusing on his dreams and wanting to go to Broadway, but he's kind of playing babysitter a little bit to their child, baby Anthony. So I wonder, is that going to prevent any of those moves of his trying to go to New York? And probably, like, while he's waiting, he's going to stick around, but he's going to be waiting, like, on, you know, any opportunities that open up for Broadway. I'd assume that'd involve him moving to New York and stuff, but we'll see what kind of happens in Kevin's story in that regard. But Betty also deals with Glenn. To be fair, Glenn was already a little bit of a dick, but it's like, yeah, going as far as he did, you're like, yeah, that was even more dickish of you, Glenn. But he always was a little weird around Betty. It's just like the way he just kind of shows up when she told him not to. It seemed weird, but, you know, Glenn doing his own thing, which I think that's the irony behind it, because she ended up... I don't know if that'd be irony. Once again, it's interesting how stuff played out, because in Riverdale, she accidentally killed Glenn, thinking that it was the real TBK, and, you know, jumping around a little bit, TBK kills him at the end after Archie already jacked him up. I love the, oh no, and Archie's like, oh yes. You know, it's like getting handsy with Betty, because she already, like, got him transferred. Plus, they were going to be, like, doing a sexual harassment investigation into him. And now he also gets murdered by TBK, who's in Riverdale. No surprise. I figured, it's like, right, we set up that storyline. Season 5's finale kind of also touched on it. I'm like, right, of course that's going to come up. I wasn't expecting it to immediately, like, get surfaced in the first episode back to Riverdale and not just Riverdale. Obviously, it played a role in Riverdale as well, but still. it is interesting. Like I said, I think they are really bringing some of like the Riverdale stuff over into Riverdale. So I guess the argument you could make is that technically Veronica made a deal with the devil because she hired someone to kill her dad. Because for her, it was like, right, this is the only way to protect my dad has gotten chance after chance after chance to change and be better. But even when he tried to change and be better, it kind of spit in his face. So now it's a situation of like, he was just done. And he was just like, in all honesty, he blames Archie. It's like, if it wasn't for you, my daughter wouldn't turn against me. I wouldn't, like, Archie's always been the thorn in his side that he had to try to get rid of. So, but now it all caught up with him because it's like, yeah, Veronica hired someone to kill him, but Reggie was like, don't do it. Like, regardless of everything, he's still your dad. And that's the thing. Can you live with the fact is, at one point in time, I'm sure Veronica probably would have thought to herself, if I did kill my dad, I could live with it. It's like, I don't think you can. Like, it's one thing killing someone, it's another when it's your family. Even if you didn't do it yourself, you still directly did it because you hired the guy to do it, but... Especially when Reggie was talking about his dad. His dad ended up having like a heart attack. And it's like, right, they're in a really good place now after so much of like the complicated issues that they have about his dad being abusive and everything. But they're finally finding a way to move forward, or finding a way to heal. And that made Veronica like, no, I don't want to. But by the time she calls the guy, it's like, yeah, it's already done. It's like, she's like, what? No. You found him that quickly? It's like, yeah, I'm just really good at my job. And it's like, oh, here's a photo. Which immediately in my brain, I'm like, it is Hiram. Yes, the actor who's playing Hiram, Mark, isn't coming back to the show. But, so I don't, that seemed to... I mean, of course, they weren't just going to let it go. So, of course, the writers are probably going to spin it like, well, if he's not going to come back to the show, we can... But I'm still like... I think they can still leave it open-ended enough because I'm like, it's Hiram. It was too quickly that you were able to kill him. Hiram's already on guard because the FBI's after him. Like, everyone made him enemy number one, so there was no, like, getting around this. So that's why I'm like, could it really be that easy? Because it's like, right, he's on the run. He's probably like doesn't have access to a lot of his assets. So his guard was down, so it made it easier. But I'm like, it was too quickly, and it's Hiram we were talking about. People have been gunning for him for a while. So that's why I'm like, he had to pay that dude off to like, no, I'm going to pay you. You let me go. And we're going to fake my death. Like, it has to be that, right? There's no way he's actually dead. Like, even if they don't make him pop up in the show again, it could just be like off-screen wise, he's actually not dead, he's still alive. Could he be lying to Hermosa too? Could she be under the impression he really is dead? Or is this try to strike a little fear and screw Veronica over? Because Hermosa's like, oh, you killed our father, which I'm like, I mean... It seems like Hermosa probably had like a better relationship with their dad than Veronica did, because Hermosa was kind of more okay with like the criminal side of things, because it was more so about their protection is how Veronica spun it. It's like, right, taking down our father benefits us in the long run, you know? So he's too much of a wild card to be left alone and yada, yada, yada. So, but it hits Veronica like, right, I didn't mean to. And it's like, right, you better watch your back, sis, because, blood will be played with blood. So she's got the guilt she's got to deal with. Plus, her sister's going to be gunning for her for this. So, I'm curious what was left in like his. I'm curious. I'm sure that it's going to come up is that he had a will set up and maybe a lot of it goes to Veronica, which Hermosa's probably going to try and come after because it's like, no, you don't deserve it. You killed father. Or maybe he didn't have a will in place. I'd assume he did because of the line of work he's in. Like, he knows at any point in time it could all come crashing down. And so when he does leave her stuff in his will, it's probably going to shake her to her core and just, she might spiral out this season because of it. Like, once again, having your own father's blood on your hands isn't an easy thing, especially because she wanted to take it back, but it's too late now. But once again, part of me believes that it's real, but there's a good chunk of me that's like, I don't think it's real. I think it's a fake out. Once again, even if like he never comes back, even if he was never going to come back to the show, still keeping him out there in the universe, it just feels like storytelling wise, that's what they would do. But we'll see. It might be like no, there ain't no beating around the bush. We're not like Shyamalan twisting. Like, no, this ain't no Shyamalan twist. He's dead. He's super dead. He's not coming back, so we'll see. Since I did bring up TBK, that's going to be interesting with Betty's power. Granted, though, Betty's power, because I was about to say, like, could it be her powers only work as a threat to her? But it's like, no, she came across that orderly Trevor who ended up killing that nurse. she saw the aura around him. So it's like, it's not just aimed at Betty. Like any aggressive or threat aura, she can see it. So it might help finding TBK, but to be fair, TBK isn't a threat necessarily. Like, well, to other people, sure, but it could just be like, because in his mind, it's like, oh, he's obsessed with Betty and he's going to protect her, and that's why he ended up killing Glenn, because it's like, oh, you disrespected Betty, now you gotta die. Obviously, I touched on it earlier too, but the whole Jughead situation, like him and Tabitha, like obviously this is still a new relationship, and that's kind of a sad wrinkle to add to the relationship. It's like, right, your significant other is going through, like, you know, it's like, but you know, she's like, don't worry, Jughead, we're gonna figure this out, we're gonna find our way together, because no one else knows. The only people that knows is Tabitha and Jughead. So he was trying to put it off for a long time, because he was thinking like, no, maybe it's in my head. Like the moment like he was walking and then the bell rung and it had made a high-pitched sound and it hurt his ear. I was like, does he have a little bit of tinnitus going on there? And I was like, ugh, things are like super bad. And I was like, is he going to... And I think that's probably going to make them feel bad, because it's like, right, we got powers, we came out of it okay. Jughead got severely screwed in his like situation, you know? So we'll see. But circling back to the Abigail thing really quickly. Once again, Nana Rose up to some... secret stuff, and you know, fascinatingly enough, that once again, just bringing all that stuff over, that's so fascinating, is that at first it was like Britta was the one blowing out the candles, because at first she's like, oh, I know it's you, Nana Rose, but in actuality it was Abigail, because she was in Britta's body. So they're not doing an exorcism, they're doing a banishment, but secretly Nana Rose was like, no, I put you in the body that's more befitting of yours. So it's like, cool, Abigail's in her body now, which is funny and interesting, because if you don't remember with the Riverdale thing, Abigail, there was no Cheryl Blossom, it was Abigail who was immortal, basically reinventing herself every couple decades or whatever. It's a different person. And that Nana Rose ended up getting the younger body at the end of it all. And Abigail got put in Nana Rose's body so that she could die and be reunited with the woman that she loved. So we're not doing that exact thing, but it's like, right, she's in Cheryl's body now, and it's time for her to make Riverdale. Because the thing is, Cheryl was pissed and upset about the Abigail thing, but she tempered herself, and even she was like, crap, I don't want Archie, Jughead, and Betty to... Like, yes, I have issues with the fact is they won't acknowledge the terrible thing their ancestors did, but I don't want them to die. They were my high school chums, and I mean, also Betty's family, so, you know, plus Archie has helped me in the past, too, so I was like... I don't hate you guys, so it's like, I don't want you to die, but it's like, right, Cheryl was never going to fully pull the trigger. Abigail, on the other hand, will. It's like, oh, and that's why I'm like, is all of this supposed to be almost like, you know, oh, I'm giving you these powers and all this, but it's all going to be your undoing in the long run. We'll have to wait and see how that all shapes up and plays out. Also, I thought was kind of a neat thing is that that guy, was it Percival? Well, Pickens, was that his last name? You know, the whole double letter things. Like Archie Andrews, that type of thing. So Percival came to buy the house. I'm like, that's weird. Who are you? Why are you trying to buy this house? And he's like, yeah, like, even in the state that isn't, I'll buy it. But Archie wanted to buy the house from his mom instead. And she's like, really? You want to live in the same house you grew up in your entire life? He's like, yeah, would it be so bad? Because that house is also like, the house and the construction job is kind of like the last ties that he has to his dad. So it's like, it's, you know, it's like that house has a lot of value just because it's like, not only is it the house he grew up in, that house is almost symbolic of Riverdale. So it being destroyed, it being taken under Archie's wing and kind of potentially getting rebuilt is very symbolic in its own right. But I think it means a lot to Archie. It's like, right, this home means a lot to me. I don't want to ever just let it go. So he buys it off his mom. I'm sure that Percival guy's going to come back around. Because we never found out who it was. Granted, we know, like, Riverdale-wise, oh, it was Jughead that helped that whole thing. But Riverdale-wise, who was it? Part of me is like, do you think it was Percival that warned him? Like, but why is he so adamant about getting this property? Is this about trying to buy up property in Riverdale, kind of continuing where Hiram left off to some extent, or something else at play here? You know, because I think, once again, that's going to be a mystery. Yes, there's a Riverdale angle to it, but Riverdale-wise, it's going to be interesting to find out who was the person on the other side of the phone who knew about the bomb who tried to save Archie. Is like, we got to figure out who that mysterious caller is. So that's probably going to be a mysterious through line. I doubt it's TBK. I think that's the TBK thing is going to be a whole separate thing. It also goes to what because they played with it like the Riverdale making it so that it wasn't really TBK that was Glenn. Played into what I thought, because I kept thinking the entire time, Glenn's TBK, isn't he? It's like, no. That confirmed that he wasn't, but also in Riverdale, he's confirmed not to be TBK because he super got murdered by TBK, so. Because I don't think I've watched, I think I saw bits and pieces of, like, promotional stuff for Riverdale, but I don't think I've seen, like, a full-blown trailer. I mean, to be fair, the CW doesn't always do full-blown trailers. They typically do, like, 30 to like a minute trailers that kind of give you a lot of out of context stuff, doesn't give you a full through line, which I'm totally fine with, because usually it's only stuff from like the first episodes or whatever. Like the trailers usually only cover like one episode with some stuff sprinkled in from throughout the season. But I don't really know what to expect from the rest of this season, what it's going to look like, what the story's going to look like, how this is all going to play out. I'm very interested to find out, though. So we'll ultimately have to wait and see where everything ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.